This time it's going to work. I'm like in the metaverse with these glasses on. It is going to work. I have a very good feeling about it. StreamYard is my friend. Facebook is not my friend. I tell you what else is my friend? Silence, which is in here. Here she comes.
I don't know how this finally happened. I'm not sure what the problem was.
Well, you have it. I'm going to tell you a little. I'm going to give you a trick. You can turn your phone sideways like I'm about to do, and then we see our faces bigger.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Well, it didn't work last night on Facebook either. And so Facebook, I don't know. It hates me. They hate me. Someone hates me.
Well, yeah. I kind of hate them too. So there's that.
Okay, so Seton Tucker has been at the Murdaugh murder trial this week, which is very exciting. I had a cruise in my mind. Seton was going. It was going to be wonderful. And then she was like, I'm not going. Next year, we're going to pick a time that you're not at a trial.
No, it should be it. I'm going to have a normal life. And I saw all your pictures. I was so jealous. I'm totally in next time because it
We
looks.
need you.
I want to be there. It looks so fun.
But we're going to find you another case to cover after this one. What I really want you to cover, in truth and honesty, is what's happening with Shanquella Robinson.
Yeah, I mean that's really important to cover. So
she needs a person.
yeah.
Okay, tell us what's happening. Kate is so enamored with your green dress. We're not talking about Seton's clothes at the trial.
Yeah,
we're talking about the trial.
That was actually it was funny because so many people reached out to me like, I see you in this green dress. So I've kind of had this imposter syndrome this whole week because I've been in the courtroom. I'm sitting next to someone like, I recognize you from Dateline. I recognize you from 2020. And it's very intimidating. So
I would be so excited. I'd be like, hello, here's my card.
Well, yes, they all had cards and I didn't have any cards.
Seton, I have cards. I'm overnighting them to you. I want you to give them my card.
Because I was like, do you have a card? I was like, no, I do not have a card. So it was slightly embarrassing, but I would say that I tried to stay out of the camera. I sat in the very back row, and for some reason, the camera was right on me the whole time. It's like, were you wearing a green dress? I was like, yes, that was me. And I was trying to hide because, again, I have imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm around all these people who are way smarter and way more accomplished. So it was slightly embarrassing.
Well, we know that's not true. So how did they, as we wait for people to come on, tell us how they chose who got to be in the courtroom? Because obviously, and tell us how many people wanted to be in the courtroom.
Well, okay. So at the beginning, they issued Judge Newman, who's presiding over this, said that there would be like, I don't know, it was like 15 people who would be on this list of approved media. And we were not on that list. So we were obviously kind of disappointed. But then they said there would be like a lottery for 4 media spots a day. So I get there the first day. I'm waiting in line. And, they say, okay, yeah, come back. They said, you were the first one to fill out your application. You're going to probably get in. So I was super excited about this. And then I came back and they said, no, the judge has decided that he's just letting the people on his initial order on. So I was kind of disappointed. But then the clerk reached back out to me. She's very nice and said, I'm so sorry about that. I've got you on the approved media list. So the very next day we got on there and we got our badge. So we are on the approved list.
Yay.
It's great.
Well, it's important because I mean, I don't think you and I are Dateline or anybody, but I mean, we certainly cover important things. You've been here from the very beginning, far more than a lot of these fools have. And it's like, it's important.
Really nice. I would say, it was funny because I spoke with Will Folks from Fitz News, and he was kind of actually upset that we didn't get on the list. He put us in his article. He's like, why didn't you guys get on the list? So I was like,
I knew you said he had been really kind and nice.
Yeah. everyone is actually very nice, but they're different than I would say we are because they're professional journalists. Again, we have this little bit of an imposter syndrome, and they're really into
We
the.
just play journalist on television.
I know, and also there's the young, like really pretty young journalists. They have their full makeup on. They're wearing heels, and they look great, and they like being on camera. I was actually sitting next to one of them one time, and the guy next to me said, "I hope you like being on camera because this is during opening arguments because you're about to be on." I was like, "No, I don't want to be on camera." And the young girl next to me was like, "Do you want to be on camera?" She's like, "Yes, I do."
She got over there.
She got over
So
quick.
we've had 1 week of court. We think 2 more weeks this week and another week.
I've heard everything. So I've heard it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks. But then I was speaking with another guy that I just met through this process, and he says this is going really slowly. He predicted it could be 6 weeks. So again, I don't know.
And what are you, so you and your partner, Matt Folks, are doing, is he going this week and you're not? Or are you taking turns?
He's going Monday and Tuesday, and I'm going to go down Wednesday and Thursday. I think he may be back Friday. We're just kind of tagging off.
Okay, great. Well, that sounds good because I told my subscribers, I was like, maybe Wednesday she'll give us a little update of where we're going and we could do like a weekly big update on the big page because we want people over there following your podcast because you've been churning out some podcasts.
And you have we did 3 this week, and we recorded
I know.
another morning. I think 4 this week. So we've really been doing it, and we appreciate how much you've supported from the beginning.
Well, my people are keen on it. On the cruise in the Bahamas, people are out at the pool with their AirPods in, listening and watching. They're like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "I'm having a pina colada. I don't know. I'm home."
I
So
love a lot
I
of.
don't even know what to ask you. Just give me what you think we need to know.
Okay, so opening arguments. I think people who have made up their mind one way or another it's very polarizing. It's weird. It's almost political. I myself have not made up my mind. I should be a juror on this case because I don't really know. I listened to Creighton Waters' opening argument. I thought it was really strong. He was very passionate. And I thought he kind of outdid Dick Harpootlian. But then when I went back and I listened to and made notes on Dick Harpootlian, I was like, wait a second. He's doing his job. He's kind of hammering away at everything they're saying. And I think the overwhelming thing is highly circumstantial. So you can win a case with circumstantial evidence. You just have to make sure it's I think John Snyder, our legal analyst, has given some examples. So circumstantial, you say you see the snow falling. The
Right.
next day, you
Right.
you don't see the snow falling, but you wake up and there's a bunch of snow outside your door. So you, I mean, you definitely can win. Uh, you can convict someone on circumstantial evidence, but it appears as if this is what it's going to be. So I kind of made some notes of things that
And
were.
tell them the name of your podcast again, Seaton.
Oh, Murdaugh Family Murders, Impact of Influence. We really like to go about impact of influence. I've been trying to promote that all week when I'm like talking to Dateline people, because we want to do an umbrella.
Murdaugh Family Murders, Impact of Influence.
We started with impact of influence, but we had to add Murdaugh onto the name because
I think
just
that was smart.
just to get people
Smart.
there. Um,
Okay. Oh my
so
God, there's so many questions. Keep going.
all right, keep going. All right, so in opening arguments, it seems as if the timeline and the cell phone data is going to be very, very crucial. That's what's going to either make or break the case, I think, on either side. And they talk about they talk about this. Well, there were a couple of things. There's a video at like 8:44
Right.
where Paul was checking on his friend's dog, and I guess Maggie and Alec can kind of be heard in the background. And the prosecution is saying that maybe he says he didn't see them at this time because when we've seen dash cam video, we've seen a sled interview, and he's not really saying that he he says he takes a nap, and
Yeah, I thought he said he was asleep.
he says he takes a nap and he goes out and to go check on his mother who suffers from dementia. His his father had been admitted to the hospital that day. So he takes his nap, and he doesn't really he says he had seen Paul earlier in the day, and then apparently there's a Snapchat video of him riding around with Paul on the property. They were checking on some dove fields and that sort of thing. And I guess they were having a good time. There's a Snapchat video, but he doesn't really talk about this 8:44 video where he is heard in the background check. Well, Paul is checking on this dog. So, I mean, there's definitely the timeline is going to be crucial with this.
What is your take on the a massive amount of him crying in the courtroom as opposed to the videos of the police capturing right after the crime? He's not crying. My take might be clear. What's your take though of being in there? Did it feel genuine? Did it feel fake?
I could not see him when I was in the courtroom crying,
Uh-huh.
but watched some of the replays from court TV and other things and saw him crying. Actually, kind of my take was I felt that it was genuine. I don't know what that means. I don't
Right.
know if it
Right.
means that he was remorseful for one reason or another, but
Right.
I did take the crying to kind of be genuine. I really did.
Hmm. Well, that's good because you were there. I think for me, just somebody that was watching it a lot yesterday, I watched, kind of caught up to it, and I was like, he said that he checked the pulse of of his son and wife, but there wasn't a lick of blood on him.
Yes, that is going to be huge. So he says he checks the pulse, and the description of the the crime scene. I mean, they said Paul's brain basically was at his feet. He did not have a brain anymore.
Right.
It was very gruesome, horrific injuries. And you would think if someone had checked a pulse that they would have some amount of blood on them. And the implication from the prosecution was that, maybe there was some sort of change of clothes. And we have this other video with Paul riding around with Alec earlier in the evening checking on the dove fields. And apparently he's not wearing the same clothing that he is wearing when he's in these dash cam videos with officers. Again, I don't know. Like there was the implication I think from prosecution that maybe he had a change of clothes, but then the defense is saying he doesn't look like someone who shot his son in the head because he doesn't really have any blood on him. But
Right.
then another thread that maybe law enforcement didn't properly search. Maybe they apparently the night of the accident they seized the clothes that Alec was wearing, but then maybe they didn't do a further search. They had a search warrant which encompassed the entire property, but
Mm.
maybe they didn't really search for possibly other clothing or items that could prove or disprove guilt or innocence.
Well, and somebody just said, well, maybe, he didn't get blood on him. but there were also no footprints in the blood. So, from the way the crime scene was described, if you had gone to check someone's pulse, you would have stepped in blood. There was no blood on his shoes.
I'm not totally clear on that, so I'm not going to totally speak to that. It does seem like maybe there was some microscopic stuff. They also, so they're saying that there were no nail print. The officer who testified said she did not notice any footprints or anyone kneeling
Right.
in grass. I really feel like that's going to be argued, and I didn't know what to make because I could kind of see both sides.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. What about the whole what we had heard before that there was blood spatter on some shorts?
Okay, so it does look like there's going to be some blood on his shorts, but there was the shirt. I think that shirt, from everything I've been told and everything I've seen, I think the shirt was a red herring. I don't think the shirt is going to be admissible because of the testing that they did. I guess the shirt was destroyed in the testing, which doesn't allow the defense to test it. But I think what is really happening here is maybe that shirt is not what the prosecution is saying is that's not probably not the shirt he's wearing. If
Hmm.
they're saying he killed him, that's not the shirt that he was wearing at the time of
Right.
the.
And what was found at his mother's house? Something about like a tarp or a raincoat?
In the opening statement from the prosecution, Creighton Waters talks about a raincoat that was a week later brought over to the mother's house and was subsequently discovered, and the it was positive for gunshot residue.
Hmm.
So we'll see. It was not positive as far as what they said for blood, but it was positive for gunshot residue. So I don't know what that means. I mean, I think everything appears to be positive for gunshot residue because they lived on a hunting lodge. So I
Right.
don't I don't know what to make of that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I find it more interesting that like why would it have been at his mom's house?
Yeah, why would it have been at his mom's house? But also, why was none of this discovered beforehand? Why did law enforcement not properly search the house? Which appears like that may be a theme. That may be an issue.
You mean his own house or his mother's house?
His own house. So the
Oh,
night of the murders, they secured the crime. That they secured the scene, but I don't know how much they actually searched
like the
the
drains, the
the.
washer,
I
dryer.
I don't think they did. I mean, it doesn't appear from what I've seen. But again, maybe we're going to get more information as this progresses. But it does not seem as if the house was really searched.
Well, so Robin just said it. That was my thought, Robin. I mean, it's the name of your podcast, Impact of Influence. Did they give that family a little bit of room because they were an important family?
That's a really good question, and it is highly possible. But the other thing is, several of the officers testified on the stand that they weren't aware of the family before this.
Mhm.
So I'm again, I'm listening to it with just
Yeah,
new
either
ears,
eye.
and I don't know because I've heard two of the family or two of the officers testify that they were not aware of the Murdaugh family before the evening of this of these murders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
another thing that they brought up, which the prosecution is going hard on, is Alec quickly tried to shift blame into these into the boating accident. He
right.
immediately says that this was a result. My son was involved in this boating accident where this young girl was killed, and he had been receiving threats. Again, I think that's interesting. I think everyone should pay attention to this, but I don't know what exactly that proves.
Yeah, one thing I think historically, and I don't know the data on this, but I feel like when I read crime stuff, oftentimes when someone ends up being guilty, there's this idea that they try to go ahead and pigeonhole what happened early on. You
Like
know,
they create a narrative. They're saying, no, this is it. This is the person.
yes. So I don't know if that happens a lot, but I know that there's several cases where the people have been guilty where they do say, "Oh boy, they were really having trouble with this. I bet it was that." And it was
And that could absolutely be the truth, or it could be that Alex says that his son had been receiving threats. They did not think they were credible. He had been involved in several fights. He had a black eye. Again, I don't know. I think either one could absolutely be true.
yeah. One thing that struck me, what I was thinking about was, so his son Buster is obviously at the trial. And as they were asking him, like, is it typical for Maggie to get home? Does she come and check on the dogs? All these kind of intimate questions that only a family would know about each other, right? So your husband knows your way. So if somebody asked my husband, when Adrian gets home, does she typically go and play with the dog? The answer would be no, she doesn't. But if my husband said, yes, she always did that, if my son were sitting in the courtroom, he would know what the truth was. So it's so interesting to me that Buster is listening to his dad answer these questions because Buster will know what the truth is.
He will. And it
No,
was really kind of sad. A few days this week, he's been harassed. People have like started yelling at him as he's been going in.
really. Oh,
Yeah.
um, yeah. And was Maggie living in Edisto Beach? Was that Adrian going to the beach for the summer? Was that, will we hear from, I know we have a lot of witnesses coming on. Do you think we're going to hear about more of what was really happening with them and their marriage?
Well, so that was one thing. It was not brought up in the opening statements by the prosecution about any sort of marital problems. And the defense actually did bring it up. He said, the defense says you're not going to see any evidence of marital problems. It was the perfect family. You like, this is not going to be brought up.
Mm, mm,
And we'll see. Like, we know, I think the financial stuff is pretty much of a slam dunk. It's unclear right now if that's going to be able to be brought in. I think
okay.
the judge has said he's going to kind of take that as it comes.
The blonde in the courtroom is his sister. So is her family sitting on the other side of the courtroom? And does that mean anything?
Right now, so in South Carolina, there is a victim's right mandate that Buster and John Marvin are actually able to sit in the courtroom despite being called as witnesses because they're victims. Um, I don't know for sure if Maggie's family is in the courthouse. I know if they are in the courthouse, I don't believe they are sitting behind the prosecution. Even though John Marvin and Randy and Buster have all been called as witnesses, they are sitting behind Alec, I guess, in a show of support. So, um,
Oh,
I guess it's like a wedding. You sit behind which side you are picking.
yeah. Huh. Yeah, we haven't heard anything about life insurance on Maggie and Paul. Have we?
No, that has not been brought up, and I feel like if there was life insurance,
Probably.
that we would know. I mean, that would have been totally brought up in the prosecution's opening argument.
I
I
tell
think
I'll be
maybe
shocked if he didn't have any life insurance on her, because how much money did he get for that boat in the boat accident?
I don't know.
He
That's
had that amount came out. He had more during insurance. He was making insurance claims every 10 minutes,
he was.
you know? Um, anyway, yeah. And then there was the friend that said Maggie texted her and said Alec is up to something. So I wonder, like, if we'll hear from people like that.
We may, but also some of the things that have been reported have already been proven to be false. So,
Uh,
I don't really have a lot of faith in that People magazine article because several of the things in there have already been proven to be false.
oh, good. So we'll kind of get the truth of what's happening.
Yeah, we are hearing things that come out to be true. A lot of the scoop is true. We are hearing things that, you know, this blue raincoat that is now being brought up, we're hearing about that. But there were reports that, you know, Maggie was there, but that Paul and Maggie didn't have dinner together, but it does appear as if they did have dinner together because their stomach contents were the same.
Mm,
So
mhm.
it does look like that is in fact true. So
Right.
we're kind of seeing things that a lot of the rumors have appeared to be true. And we see a lot of these witnesses. Actually, we're having an episode come out, and we hear about this caretaker, this CB Rowe, who was a caretaker. He is mentioned in Ellick's sled interview from the night of the accident. He was a caretaker, and we're gonna hear from him. He's been named. He, which I don't put a hill of beans. I mean, Eddie Smith said that I guess CB Rowe and Maggie were having this affair. I don't really think that's true. Again, but we're hearing a lot. Oh, and they said that CB Rowe had been fired, but it looks like CB Rowe maybe was having some issues with not doing his job well. But I guess he hadn't been fired. There's just there we're kind of getting through all of the rumors, and also some things are true, some things are not.
What about what we heard regarding that something at the crime scene made them open up the investigation into Stephen Smith's death?
We have yet to hear anything in this at court regarding Stephen Smith. So
And where did that information come from initially? I can't remember.
it was, I mean, SLED reported it. SLED said that the investigation we're reopening Stephen Smith's investigation into stuff that we found at the crime scene,
Okay.
information that we found at the crime scene. So, but nothing that has been revealed in court so far has referenced Stephen Smith at all.
Hmm. Okay. Huh. Well, that'll be curious. So that wasn't a rumor. That was more a police report
No,
accounting.
that was the SLED. SLED announced that they were reopening his case.
And do you think we'll hear anything about the housekeeper? Like, are we going to hear about these little blips of other
So
deaths?
that is actually interesting because we don't know if we're going to hear about the financial crimes. So right now, the housekeeper is primarily a financial. I mean, her investigation. We don't know if her body's going to be exhumed. We did hear that her body was going to be exhumed, and they're reopening an investigation into her death. But right now, I think they're trying to link these financial crimes to the murders of Maggie and Paul. So I think that's that's where we are with that.
Hmm. Okay. Well, whew, it's a lot to digest. My dad and I were talking about it a couple days ago, and I lost my only brother to cancer, and so my dad's lost his son, obviously in a different way. But my dad was, I could just see in his face. He didn't say it, but I could see him thinking, like, I just don't know how you could shoot your own son, and that's a big that's a big thing for people to have to decide about somebody. I think we all know that that happens to spouses. Obviously, 30% of the death murders of spouses are from their significant other, so we sort of accept that. But your own children is a really tricky thing, and it's that's going to be a big thing to say without a reasonable doubt. Did he do that? And if he didn't, then do you have to say, we don't think he did, but we think somebody else did? Or was he involved?
Well, that they bring up the fact that the prosecution is bringing up the fact that really with this time frame, the time frame is going to be crucial when they delve into this. Would it be possible that he could commit these crimes, go to his mother's, come back in such a short period of time without any sort of assistance or help? And then they also kind of they talk about these guns. There's guns missing. They were shot with two different guns. Was it possible that there are two shooters? Really, the defense is hammering down there, trying to pick apart every little thing. But and they're also saying there's a big leap from somebody stealing a whole bunch of money from people to shooting their son in the head and his brain being found at his feet. Like that's a big
Right.
leap. And again, I don't know. I'm not taking any sort of sides. It's funny because people have really become very polarized with this. A lot of people have really decided guilt or mostly guilt. Some people innocent, but I myself am like your father. I don't know. Like
I don't either. That son thing really gets me. I think if the son hadn't been involved, I would probably be more leaning towards like, eh.
and he does seem genuinely torn up. Whether that's because he
Mhm.
did something or whether it's I don't know.
Well, we know that he is crappy. I mean, when you watch what happened the night of that boat accident and you watch what he's doing in that hospital, he's a pretty terrible acting person.
No, he was orchestrating stuff from the get go, trying to.
He wasn't worried about a young lady that's missing, you know?
And people who have been called on this witness list, we have the Ford consulting people who they was a friend of his that he stole their business name and then used it to steal money from people. You know, he's admitted to stealing money from the housekeeper who raised his children. He confessed judgment to that.
Right. Yeah, it's weird to think that he was successful as an attorney and then doing all this. I think too the big question that I still have is he stole all this money. I in my little peon brain cannot see that he could have spent millions of dollars on drugs for himself.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I know what it takes to be a lawyer and be in a courtroom. My husband does it. You couldn't do it and be drugged up.
no. I think the drug stuff. I mean, I although I do think that it is possible that he had some sort of functional addiction.
Right, right. Oh yeah. But to spend 10 or 12 million dollars on it,
No, there's unaccounted for money that that is unbelievable. I think the unaccounted for money are that's going to lead to answers.
uh-huh.
And I hope that they actually have Eddie Smith take the stand. I really want to see what Eddie Smith has to say about this whole mess.
You know, I'm really not sure. I'm feeling like this Eddie Smith is awfully naughty. I at the beginning I was like, poor Eddie Smith. Now I'm like, cousin Eddie is a little sneaky. So I would, gosh, if you ever die and go to heaven, I hope you get to see a little videotape of all the questions you ever had. You know, if we could just see a 2-minute video, we wouldn't even need a trial, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we should look for the cell phone data. I think that's really going to give some answers. We should look for the clothing chain. You
Uh-huh.
know, if there was a clothing change, where is, are we going to see this other clothing that he was wearing in this Snapchat video while he's riding around the property with Alec? I think that is a big thing.
So then the question is, where are those clothes that were in that Snapchat video?
Right. And where are those clothes? And if we don't have those clothes, was the house searched? I mean, there's questions about whether law enforcement didn't potentially do their job.
Right, right. And how about what's one other thing I was going to ask you? Oh, how far away was Maggie's phone found?
That was I don't have my notes. It wasn't Oh, that's actually going to be a big thing too, because Maggie's phone was found, I think, like half a mile away. They were able to locate it the morning after by using some sort of, I don't know if it was Find My iPhone or some other sort of technology. They were able to ping her phone and find it. But what the defense mentioned in their opening statement was it was not possible for Ella to dispose of the phone because of what I guess the cell phone technology will say. So we'll see. We have not seen that. That could be completely false, or not as what they're portraying it to be.
Right, right, right.
Another thing that will be really interesting is, we have the video that was taken at 8:44 at the dog kennels where Paul was checking on his friend's dog. So the the defense has really portrayed this. They said it was a convivial family conversation, but what I've heard from others is no, this is not a convivial family conversation. It's not as friendly as what the defense would like to portray it as.
Mm, okay. And
So
are we going to hear that conversation?
it's going to come out. I think we will see that video.
And when do you think when does that part show up?
I
What's tomorrow? What do we know about tomorrow?
I don't know what tomorrow is. I think it's going to be more sled. Like, honestly, Friday was very hard to listen to. It was like, let's admit this, and I think the prosecution is just building their case. But let's put this shell casing, this. Like, it was just putting a lot of stuff into the record, and it was very dry. I think we're going to hear from more law enforcement, and one of the big things that prosecution is saying is we don't have the weapon, but we found shell casings around Maggie's body. These shell casings appear to be from the same weapon that was used in other places around the property. There's a firing range and some missing weapons, and it appears as if they were the same weapons used based on their science. So we'll
Okay.
we don't have the weapon, but it appears as if there was a blackout 300 weapon or 300 blackout. I get confused. Please, weapons,
Mhm.
don't criticize me for that. I know you will, but but um, I this they're saying that if you look at the casings, that they appear to be the same casings that were used on the property at other times.
So, one thing that I didn't like that the prosecution did was when they were talking about, they kept saying, reiterating, Alec, you checked the pulse twice. And then the defense came up and said, well, did he go to check it two separate times or just twice, like one person, one person? And they said, well, just once and once. And I was like, why is the prosecution was trying to, in my mind, to make me believe something that didn't happen. And
Weird. I mean,
I didn't like that. I want them to stick to the truth.
me too, but the bigger thing to me there is like, okay, they should have asked, where did you try to check the pulse? And also, if you did, so Paul was found face down, his hands were under him. So if they did check, why didn't he have any blood on him? They said his hands appeared to be clean and all of this. Did he really? They didn't really ask him the questions that I would have wanted to ask if I was law enforcement. Okay, there's a tremendous amount of blood. Where did you check the pulse?
Right.
Why are your hands clean?
And I think that's like small town police department, honestly.
Maybe.
So, what about, and this might seem silly, but this is the kind of thing that sticks out to me in those jailhouse tapes that we heard, right? We had this discussion, and somebody brought it up some comments ago, where Alec is trying to tell Buster he ought to go hunting at Moselle. And Buster says, I'm not going. And it's like Alec seems totally clueless. that his son might not want to go there.
Yeah.
And
It
that just leaves me kind of with a yucky feeling.
it,
Anyway,
it was tone deaf for sure.
and unusual to me that so Buster has that's his visceral reaction is I don't want to go there, which I think is pretty normal for somebody that's lost their family members. But for Alec, it's like, oh, it's no big deal. Go hunting. I don't just left me kind of yick.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how everyone, and I think I had the exact same reaction that you did about that. But then some of the other thing, like the prosecution was, so one of the officers who was, I think, the second one to respond to the scene said, what, when the officer came up, he said, hey, oh, hey, how you doing? And they were kind of using that as evidence of Alex not acting right. And I'm like, okay, I could basically say my husband would probably say the same thing, because I think that's just like the way he was raised. His natural reaction to say, hey, how you doing? Not, I mean,
Right.
I'll listen to the the police officer body cam video, and also the the sled interview, and mixed feelings. But I think that I can't say that I, as a jury member, would be convinced he didn't act appropriately.
So here's the big question. I hadn't even thought about this. If Alec didn't do it, which he might have not done it, do we does your gut tell you he had no idea, nothing to do with it?
No, something. I mean, there are these financial crimes. I mean, I can't believe that anybody. I mean, I think with the amount of money that is missing and all of these other charges, it would be highly unlikely in my mind that they would not be related in some way.
Hmm. So then in that case, then it's like, well, he did have something to do with it some way. He wasn't just minding his own business.
No, but you have to, like, this is murder. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
it.
But even if you hire somebody to commit murder, it still counts as murder, though they're not
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely. If you hire somebody to commit murder, that is murder.
Hmm. But this case isn't for that. So
No,
this case
it,
is did
it's
he do it?
odd. Like, I don't know if they've completely explored all the options. Like, did he hire somebody, or
Right.
or these somebody come after them for revenge because he owed them a bunch of money? I don't.
Hmm.
This is purely conjecture. So
Yeah. It's just hard to think about who else would have wanted, if not him, who else would have benefited from their deaths? It doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't. And I keep thinking that in my mind, and but I don't know either that he benefited from their deaths.
But wasn't there like a big court case that was about to happen where his financial stuff was going to be due and he hadn't turned it in?
So this is so there was the boating case. There was the boating case where Mallory Beach was killed, and I think 2 days after the case, they were set to go to court. Mark Tinsley, the attorney, was saying, "Okay, we're going to have to get to the bottom. Tell us your financial situation." But what the prosecution, or what the defense said in their opening statement, was, you would not, there was no guilty verdict. They maybe had to give a financial statement, but they're not going to get all of the financial records. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. Of course, they're pleading their case, but I also wonder, did that really, there was this hearing, did that really make this go away? It still didn't make his financial problems go away.
Mm-mm. But it made the case against the Murdaugh family go away for the boat accident money, because when Paul Murdaugh was killed and dead, there could be no claim against him anymore.
No, That's not true. Paul Murdaugh was never being sued in the boating accident because he
Right.
didn't
No criminal trial. No criminal trial.
have a criminal trial, but this was the civil litigation. So the hearing that was coming up was, I think, Alec and Buster were both being sued for civil damages in relation to the boating accident, but Paul wasn't being sued.
Mm,
It didn't really, and there were no life insurance on Maggie and Paul. And again, maybe it was to buy time. I don't know, but that also seems a little bit.
strange.
I want to see the prosecution connect these dots because I'm not seeing it thus far.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to be ready to listen and hear from you. What time do we need to be ready tomorrow morning?
9:30 a.m. court starts.
9:30. And where can people watch it?
I know you can watch Law and Crime. I've heard, I've been in the courtroom, so I really haven't followed the online stuff. But I think Law and Crime and Court TV you can find. I've heard, or Crime and Law and Crime. I've heard that's the
I think
better,
I
like,
saw it.
I've heard that's the better place to watch.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much, Seaton, for coming on, and we'll look forward to checking in with you middle of the week and
Yes.
see what we're learning. I appreciate all your time.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. All
Okay.
right. Bye.